I ripped off my veil right at the altar and threw the ring in the face of the man I had spent 5 years with. At that exact moment, his delusional mother was screeching at the top of her lungs, accusing me of ruining her son's life, while hundreds of guests froze in dead silence. But the worst part began a week later, when the truth about the secret pregnancy of his new flame came to light. My name is Naomi, and I am 27 years old. I've always considered myself a pragmatic person. Working in a major marketing agency taught me to read people, calculate risks, and never take beautiful presentations at face value. But, as it often happens, my own personal life turned out to be the exact blind spot where my professional skills failed me. Leonard and I had been together for 5 years. 5 years of what seemed to be a smooth, stable, and reliable relationship. We met at a charity gala. He struck me as well-read, ambitious, and, importantly, deeply respectful of family values. He often told me how hard it had been for his mother, Beatrice, after his father left, and how she had raised him entirely on her own, denying herself everything just to give her son a decent education. This grateful son mentality initially evoked nothing but admiration in me. I thought, if a man treats his mother with such tenderness, he will treat his wife with the utmost care. Slowly but surely, we moved toward marriage. 6 months ago, Leonard proposed. We decided to organize a beautiful, expensive wedding. My parents, who aren't wealthy but had been saving for my future their entire lives, contributed a colossal sum for them, $90,000, as a down payment on our future spacious apartment, where we plan to raise children. Due to some legal technicalities involving Leonard's job and taxes, the apartment was registered in his name before the wedding, but we signed preliminary agreements, and I saw no red flags in it. We were a family. Or maybe I just wanted to think so. Beatrice, my future mother-in-law, acted with pointed politeness, though a cold, evaluating judgment always lingered in her eyes. She constantly controlled every single step, from choosing the color of the table napkins to the style of my dress. Leonard always smoothed things over. "Naomi, honey, please understand her. She lived her whole life just for me. For her, my wedding day is the most important day. Just let her have her way in these little things." And so, I yielded. I didn't want to start our married life with family feuds. But 3 weeks before the celebration, Leonard became strangely brooding. He would spend hours whispering into his phone with his mother, locking himself in his study, and whenever I asked, he would just brush it off, blaming it on the stress of launching a new project at his firm. The wedding day arrived. A luxurious banquet hall overflowing with white roses. More than 150 guests, our friends, relatives, and Leonard's high-ranking colleagues. My dress was by a famous designer, topped with a long veil and gleaming rings. Everything looked like a fairy tale come to life. My father, barely holding back his tears, walked me down the aisle where Leonard stood looking dashing in a flawless tuxedo. Right next to him, in the front row, sat Beatrice, wiping dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. We exchanged vows. The host announced the start of the banquet, and the time came for the ceremonial toasts. Leonard took the microphone. I smiled, expecting to hear words of love, gratitude to my parents, and plans for our shared future. But what happened next turned that perfect day into an absolute nightmare. Leonard turned to the front row where his mother sat, his voice trembling with a forced, dramatic flair. "Dear guests, today is the day I begin a new chapter in my life. But I would have no right to stand here if not for the woman who gave me her everything. Mom, you raised me alone. You spent sleepless nights, you sold your jewelry just so I could graduate from college and become the person I am today." Approving sighs rippled through the hall. Guests reached for their glasses, touched by such filial piety. Beatrice pressed her handkerchief to her lips. "And therefore," Leonard continued, raising his voice, "in front of everyone present here, I want to make an official announcement. As a token of my endless gratitude and love, I declare that I am officially transferring all of my premarital assets, including our new apartment and all of my savings, to my mother, Beatrice Sterling. From this day forward, she is their sole and rightful owner." A heavy, ringing silence fell over the room. My parents froze, their faces instantly turning pale. I felt the ground slide out from under my feet. Transferring the apartment? The very one my parents had invested $90,000 into? Without a single word, without ever discussing it with me? But Leonard didn't stop. He beamed with his own sense of nobility, entirely oblivious to the fact that my smile had hardened into an icy mask. Furthermore, his voice boomed through the speakers, filling every corner of the massive hall, I am taking on a lifelong commitment. On the first day of every month, I will be wire transferring $6,000 to my mother's personal account. This is the least I can do to ensure her old age is absolutely carefree. The hall erupted, but not with outrage, with applause. Leonard's older relatives wept with adoration. Cries echoed from the distant tables. What a respectful son! A heart of gold! Naomi, you are so lucky to have him! Beatrice rose from her seat, now sobbing out loud. Leonard stepped down from the stage, hugged her tightly, and they froze in that theatrical embrace under the gaze of dozens of smartphone cameras. I stood alone in the middle of the stage. A wave of suffocating, icy absurdity washed over me. Numbers raced through my mind like a whirlwind. $6,000 a month. That was nearly 2/3 of Leonard's net income after taxes. Our apartment, purchased partly with my parents' money, now belonged to Beatrice. We were expected to live, pay bills, plan for children, and build a future on the meager remnants of his salary and my modest income, while all jointly created property, de facto, went into someone else's hands. Leonard returned to the stage, still beaming. He took my hand. His palm was hot and sweaty. Naomi, honey, he whispered, but the microphone in his hand was still on, and everyone heard his words. Support me. Tell everyone you agree. Look how happy Mom is. We can handle anything together, right? We'll get by on what's left. The room fell silent. 150 pairs of eyes stared at me, expecting a submissive, loving smile and a nod from the bride. They expected me to sign up for my own financial slavery and a voluntary surrender of my future. Beatrice looked at me from the front row, and a triumphant, predatory smirk flashed through her tears. And at that exact moment, something inside me snapped completely. I realized that if I kept quiet now, the rest of my life would turn into serving this destructive, suffocating bond between mother and son, where I would be relegated to the role of a powerless appendage. I slowly took the microphone from Leonard's hands. My voice sounded surprisingly firm, without a single tremor. I do not agree, and I also have an announcement for everyone present. A dead silence fell over the hall. Leonard's smile began to slowly slide off his face, replaced by an expression of mild bewilderment. Naomi, what are you doing? This isn't funny, he muttered through his teeth. But I wasn't looking at him anymore. I looked out into the hall, straight at my shocked parents, and then turned my gaze to the guests. Our wedding is canceled, I said loudly and clearly. Right now, the banquet is over. The hall literally exploded. Shouts rang out, a glass shattered on the floor, and a hum of surprise and shock filled the room. My father jumped up from his seat, and my mother covered her face with her hands. Leonard turned purple with rage. His noble mask vanished instantly, exposing a face distorted with anger. Are you out of your mind? He roared, grabbing me by the elbow. You are humiliating me in front of my colleagues and friends. What the hell are you doing? At that moment, Beatrice rushed to the stage. Her tears of adoration dried up instantly, her face sharpening into a mask of fury. You shameless wretch! She screamed across the hall, pointing a finger at me. We welcomed you into our family, and you pull this dirty stunt over money? You're after my son's income. You aren't even worth his pinky finger. Showing your true colors, you gold digger. The guests grew even louder. Some began to stand up from their seats, not knowing whether to leave or stay to witness this massive drama unfold. Leonard tried to seize the initiative and grab the microphone back from me, muttering to the room. Apologies, the bride just had a breakdown, pre-wedding stress. We'll sort this out right away. But then, Eve, one of my bridesmaids, stood up from her table. She walked resolutely toward the stage, her heels clicking loudly on the floor. "Stress!" Eve shouted, her voice ringing out over the roar of the crowd. "Why doesn't the noble Leonard remember whose money forms the foundation of his so-called premarital assets? Why don't you tell your colleagues that the $90,000 for the down payment on your gorgeous apartment came from Naomi's parents? Did you decide to gift someone else's money to your mommy, Leonard?" That round was ours. A new wave of whispering swept through the hall. Leonard's colleagues, solemn men in expensive suits, exchanged glances. The situation turned on its head in an instant. This no longer looked like the tantrum of a hysterical bride. It smelled of outright fraud. Leonard froze, his jaw dropping slightly. He clearly hadn't expected this fact to surface right here, in front of everyone. Beatrice tried to shout over Eve, yelling that it was all lies and slander, but I wasn't about to back down. I took a step back, raised my hands, and with one swift motion, ripped the long, expensive veil from my head, tossing it right under Leonard's feet. Then I pulled the diamond engagement ring off my finger and threw it hard at his chest. The ring hit him and clattered onto the stage. "I demand a full refund of the $90,000 my parents invested by the end of this week," I said, looking Leonard dead in the eye. "Otherwise, we will meet in court. And now, I apologize to everyone who came. My family will cover exactly half of the expenses for this disrupted banquet, so that no one here leaves with the illusion that we owe anyone anything." I turned around and walked off the stage. My parents were already waiting for me in the aisle. My father wrapped his arm tightly around my shoulders, and my mother walked beside me, holding my hand firmly. 150 people watched us leave, their expressions a mix of shock, judgment, pity, and admiration. Leonard was left standing on the stage, alone, purple-faced, clenching his fist to the furious but now meaningless rants of his mother. An hour later, I was back home. The white wedding dress, which just recently seemed like a symbol of happiness, now looked like a ridiculous costume. I locked myself in my room, threw it off, and put on my familiar old jeans and a loose hoodie. My mother was crying in the kitchen, and my father was out on the balcony, smoking one cigarette after another. I went out to join them. I was hurting. Everything inside me burned with resentment and the raw feeling of betrayal, but my mind remained crystal clear. "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry," I said softly, sitting down at the table. "I'm sorry that your money and your hopes shattered like that, right in front of everyone." My father put out his cigarette, walked into the kitchen, and sat down opposite me. His face looked 10 years older. "Naomi, sweetheart, we will get over the money. You are what matters. But tell me, couldn't this have been handled later, without such a public embarrassment? 90,000. I'm not sure if we should get dragged into lawsuits with his family. Leonard has connections, a good firm. Maybe we could have settled it peacefully?" "No, Dad," I replied firmly. "You can't settle things peacefully with people like them. If I had kept quiet, I would have signed my own life sentence. Breaking it off now, even with a massive scandal, is 100 times better than a messy, agonizing divorce at 40, when we'd have children and every single penny of our property would belong to Beatrice. I will get your money back. Every single cent." My mother raised her head, wiped her tears, and looked at my father. "Naomi is right. That boy and his mother are dishonest. They wanted to take our money. I agree with Naomi completely. We are going all the way." The next morning, I was already sitting in the office of a prominent civil litigation attorney. His name was Ryan Sinclair, a middle-aged man with a sharp mind and a reputation for never losing property disputes. I explained the entire situation and provided bank statements proving the transfer of $90,000 from my father's account to the developer's account as the down payment for Leonard's apartment. Fortunately, my father had the foresight to note in the payment memo, "Down payment for apartment for Naomi and Leonard." Sinclair reviewed the documents carefully, tapping his pen on the desk. "Well, Naomi, the situation is classic, albeit handled with a particular level of cynicism," the lawyer said. "Legally, the apartment is registered to him, but we have a paper trail of your funds. The payment memo is our main trump card. You have every right to demand the return of this sum as unjust enrichment, since the purpose of the payment, cohabitation in marriage, was not achieved due to the fault of the opposing party. Plus, we will demand the return of your personal belongings, including that expensive Swiss watch you gave him for your anniversary." "Where do we start?" I asked. "With an official pre-trial demand letter," Sinclair smiled faintly. "We'll send it to Leonard's personal address and a copy to his company's headquarters. Large firms hate it when their top executives are entangled in messy financial disputes. That should motivate him to resolve this quickly. But be warned, the reaction will be volatile. Be prepared for pressure." The lawyer turned out to be entirely right. As soon as the letter was delivered, my phone practically melted. Leonard called every 5 minutes. When I blocked his number, he began messaging me on every available platform using his friends' accounts. "Naomi, have you completely lost your mind? A lawyer! You are demanding money that went into our shared home. My mother is on the verge of a heart attack because of your selfishness. Tear up that letter. Let's meet and talk like civilized people. You are ruining my career." I didn't reply. I blocked one account after another. My former friends split into 2 camps. Some sympathized, while others accused me of being materialistic, claiming that love is above money and that I should have understood Leonard's feelings toward his mother. What nonsense! In the evening, Eve came over. She brought pizza and a bottle of wine to help take my mind off things. We sat on the living room floor, and Eve scrolled through social media. "You know, Naomi," she said thoughtfully, taking a bite of pizza, "I talked to a couple of mutual acquaintances who hang out with Beatrice's circle. Your Leonard was always his mommy's project. She raised him not just as a son, but as her primary investment asset. All his past relationships ended the exact moment the girl started claiming his time or money. You lasted the longest because your parents injected a massive lump sum of cash, and Beatrice decided it was a great jackpot to take under her control. Their relationship is a pure, distilled symbiosis of parasites." "Well, that symbiosis is going to have to do without our $90,000, I said grimly. "If they don't return the money voluntarily, Sinclair files the lawsuit, and then the real legal nightmare begins for them." 2 days later, Leonard sent me a message via a courier, a short, handwritten note. "Naomi, if you don't drop these claims, I will make your life a living hell. You'll regret ever crossing me and my family." It was a direct threat, but instead of fear, I felt nothing but a cold, deep fury. The next day, Sinclair called me in and shared some encouraging news. A preliminary asset search revealed that besides this apartment, Leonard owned a share in another property registered in his name, so he was far from the struggling young man he pretended to be when cutting our budget. He had the money. He just didn't want to give back what was mine. To distract myself and clear my head, Eve and I decided to spend Saturday at a large shopping mall, to buy me some new clothes to replace the ones left in Leonard's apartment, which he was refusing to return. We walked through the stores, and I found myself smiling for the first time in a while, feeling the suffocating weight of my past relationship lift from my shoulders. But on Monday morning, the illusion of peace was shattered in the most brutal way. I was sitting at my desk at the agency, sorting through emails, when a loud, aggressive voice erupted in the reception area. The door to my office burst open, and Leonard barged in. His tie was missing, his hair was disheveled, and his eyes were bloodshot. He was breathing heavily, looking like a man who had completely lost his grip. "Naomi!" he yelled across the entire open-plan office, drawing the attention of dozens of my colleagues. "We need to talk, right now!" He stepped into my office and slammed the door shut behind him, but the glass walls offered absolutely no soundproofing. All my colleagues dropped their work and stared straight at us. "Leonard, get out of here," I said quietly but firmly, standing up from my desk. "All communications between us go through my lawyer, Ryan Sinclair, from now on." "Your lawyer is a vulture!" Leonard spat, stepping right up to my desk. He shook some papers in the air. "Do you have any idea that because of your legal letter, I was hauled into executive management? Our compliance and security team has launched an internal investigation into my financial dealings because your lawyer hinted at hidden income. You are ruining my life, you worthless piece of trash. You're destroying a reputation I spent years building. You destroyed your own life and reputation when you chose to pull that stunt at the wedding and gift my parents' money to your mother, I snapped back. Return the $90,000, return my watch, return my clothes. Then the investigation stops, because we'll sign a settlement agreement. It's that simple, Leonard. The price of your peace of mind is $90,000. Leonard slammed his fist on the desk, rattling my coffee mug. You will never see a single dime of that money. We were together for 5 years. For 5 years, I spent my time on you, took you on vacations, bought groceries. You owe everything to me. If you don't drop this lawsuit, I will grind you into dust. I'll make sure you get kicked out of this agency, and you'll never find another job in this city again. He lunged forward, his face inches from mine, and at that exact moment, the office door flew open. 2 large security guards from our business center, whom my assistant had managed to call, pinned Leonard's arms in a vice grip. "Let me go!" he screamed, spitting with rage as he was dragged down the corridor past whispering employees. "Naomi, you'll pay for this. I'll get back at you, you bitch. Do you hear me? I will ruin you." My colleagues surrounded me, offering support and bringing me water. My manager, Helen, stepped into the office and looked at me with deep concern. "Naomi, that was horrifying. We are on your side, of course, but you understand that scenes like this damage the agency's image? We can't have police incidents in the workplace. Please, resolve your personal matters as soon as possible. And be careful, that guy looks completely unhinged." That evening, I recounted everything to my parents. Hearing about the threats, my father went pale with anger and began pacing the room. "That punk dares to threaten my daughter? That's it. No more playing nice. Naomi, do whatever the lawyer says. We aren't backing down a single inch. He will pay for every tear you shed and every single cent." The next day, the situation took an even more absurd turn. In the evening, while I was at my parents' place, the doorbell rang. Beatrice was standing on the threshold. This time, she wasn't wearing her festive silk. She was in an austere dark coat, her face pale and severe. In her hands, she clutched an expensive leather purse. "May I come in?" she asked in an icy tone. My father wanted to shut the door in her face, but I stopped him. "Let her in. Let's see what she wants." Beatrice walked into the living room, refused to sit down, and unzipping her purse, pulled out a bank check. She slammed it down on the coffee table. "There is $90,000 here," she spat, looking at me with utter contempt. "Take your filthy money, you pauper. Take it and get out of my son's life forever. Because of you, he was suspended from a key project. You are a curse that nearly destroyed his career. We don't need your handouts, and we don't need your pocket change either." I looked at the check. The amount was correct, but something in her demeanor, this excessive haste and aggression, made me suspicious. I didn't touch the paper. "I will not accept this check from your hands, Beatrice," I replied calmly. "All financial settlements will be executed officially through our attorney's escrow accounts after Leonard signs a mutual release of claims and returns my personal belongings. I am not going to take a piece of paper that you can cancel at the bank tomorrow morning, claiming I extorted it from you." Beatrice shook with so much rage that her perfect blowout fell slightly apart. "Why, you calculating little viper," she hissed, stepping toward me. "Who do you think you are? My son is a genius. He can find 100 girls like you. Your parents are just low-class peasants who scrape together a few miserable pennies, and you're no different. You staged a circus at the wedding, humiliated us in front of decent people. You are the frauds and abusers here. You broke Leonard's life. But mark my words, I will not let this stand. You'll come crawling back on your knees, begging for forgiveness when we crush your name." My father stepped forward, shielding me. "Get out of my house, Beatrice. Get out before I call the police for trespassing and uttering threats. Your son is a coward and a mommy's boy, and you are a deeply sick woman. Get out." Beatrice spat on the rug, snatched her check, and stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. Her hysterical screams echoed through the stairwell for a long time. I immediately called Ryan Sinclair and reported her visit. "You did the absolute right thing, Naomi," the lawyer approved. "No hand-to-hand checks, only an official wire transfer to our firm's trust account. And make sure to request the security footage from your business center showing Leonard's assault at your workplace. That's our insurance policy. If they try to paint you as the villain, we have ironclad proof of his instability. We can also file for a restraining order to keep him away from you." Literally an hour after that conversation, I received a text message from Leonard himself. His tone had shifted drastically, turning suppliant and pathetic. "Naomi, please forgive me for what happened at the office. I was out of my mind. Mom lost her temper. She's incredibly worried about me. Please, let's settle this amicably. I am ready to transfer the money through your lawyer before the end of the week. Just drop the complaint with my company, or I'll get fired. I'm begging you. We loved each other once." Reading it made my stomach turn. Loved each other? 5 years flashed before my eyes, and I realized I had loved an illusion, a person who, in reality, never existed. I replied shortly, "Money in Sinclair's account by Friday. Belongings via courier. Then we sign the papers. Do not text me again," and blocked him once more. I thought that would be the end of the nightmare, but Beatrice Sterling did not know how to lose gracefully. She decided to strike where she believed I was most vulnerable, my reputation and public image. On Wednesday morning, Eve woke me up with a call at 6 o'clock. Her voice trembled with indignation. "Naomi, open Facebook, right now. That old witch has completely lost her mind." I forced my eyes open, opened the app, and felt everything inside me freeze. A massive, hysterical post had been published on Beatrice's personal page, which was completely public. "Attention! Beware of this con artist and gold digger," the headline read. "I have remained silent for a long time, but I can no longer hide the truth. This woman, Naomi, pretended to be my son Leonard's loving fiancé for 5 years. She wormed her way into our family's trust, bled my son for money, forced him to buy an expensive apartment, and when Leonard announced at the wedding that he wanted to fulfill his filial duty and support his sick, retired mother, this fury threw a filthy tantrum right at the altar. She threw her ring, insulted me and my guests, canceled the wedding, and is now using underhanded tactics and corrupt lawyers to extort $90,000 from my son, threatening to destroy his career. She is blackmailing his corporate executives and sending thugs to his workplace. Look at this face. Behind the mask of innocence hides a cold, calculating monster who destroyed my family's happiness for profit. Please share widely. The public needs to know who this hero really is." Attached to the post were photos, happy pictures of Leonard and me from vacations, a photo of me in my wedding dress where I looked tense. Twisting the context, Beatrice called this a malicious smirk, and a screenshot of the official letter from my lawyer with the $90,000 figure circled in red marker. The post was gaining viral traction. It already had over 500 shares and hundreds of comments. People who knew nothing of the backstory were spitting venom. "What a vile girl! Typical leech, wanted to strip the guy clean. Thank God he got rid of her. Respect to the son, and this piece of trash should be jailed for extortion. Kick her out of her job." I began to shake. My phone was blowing up with notifications. Acquaintances, former classmates, and colleagues were sending me links. It was a public execution. Beatrice had crafted a perfect, manipulative internet sob story, playing on the sacred bonds of motherhood and filial love, painting me as absolute evil. I sat on my bed, clenching my fists, choking on tears of rage. But I quickly pulled myself together. They want a war in the public square? I thought. Fine, they'll get one. But I'll play by my rules. I didn't write defensive comments under her post. That would be a sign of weakness. I called Ryan Sinclair. "Naomi, this is pure defamation and libel, damaging your honor, dignity, and professional reputation," the lawyer said calmly, though a professional spark was clear in his voice. We can sue her for a massive sum, but a lawsuit takes months. The internet reacts here and now. You need to make a countermove. Do you have evidence? I have everything, I replied, and I will destroy them with their own weapons. I sat down at my computer. For 3 hours, I drafted my response. No emotions, no insults, just cold, lethal facts. I went through the entire history of our 5-year relationship, point by point. I described the scene at the wedding, word for word. And most importantly, I attached the proof. To my post, I attached a screenshot of the bank transfer from my father for the amount of $90,000 with a clear payment memo. The wedding video, the exact moment where Leonard announces the transfer of the apartment to his mother and the $6,000 monthly payments, clearly showing the expressions on my parents' faces and Beatrice's triumphant smirk. The security footage from my office building showing Leonard smashing furniture, screaming at me, and threatening physical violence until security tackles him. A screenshot of his pathetic text message apologizing and begging me not to ruin his career, sent right after his office rampage. At the end of the post, I wrote, "I do not want your pity. I want justice." The Sterling family tried to steal my parents' money, and when they were caught red-handed, they decided to destroy my reputation with lies. All materials have been handed over to legal counsel. Draw your own conclusions. Sinclair proofread the text, removing any legally risky phrasing, and gave the green light. I knew my personal page was private, so I made the post public and asked Eve, who had a large following, along with other wedding guests who had witnessed the absurdity firsthand, to share it. The post went live, and the effect exceeded all expectations. It was a nuclear blast. Within a few hours, the pendulum of public opinion swung in the opposite direction with such force that it completely obliterated the Sterling family. The truth was so glaring and backed by undeniable evidence that the internet community grew furious at how cynically Beatrice had manipulated them. The comment section under Beatrice's post turned into a battlefield. The very same people who had cursed me in the morning were now writing, "Old witch, give the girl her money back! A parasite and a mommy's boy. What a horrific fraud! Naomi, you are a goddess. Good for you for dumping that loser." In a panic, Beatrice disabled comments and then deleted her post entirely, but it was too late. Screenshots had already spread across Facebook and local community pages. But the consequences didn't stop there. The scandal reached the executive leadership of our respective companies. On Thursday morning, I was called into the office of our agency's head of HR. My manager, Helen, was also present. The HR head's face was unreadable. "Naomi, we have reviewed the situation unfolding on social media," she began. "We understand that you are the victim here, and we truly sympathize with you. Your response was professional and well argued. However, the scale of this scandal has breached acceptable limits. Our agency represents major corporate brands. Your name is now associated with ugly legal battles and family drama. Management has decided to place you on a 1-month paid administrative leave until things settle down." Helen tried to intervene. "She is our top performer. Her personal life does not affect her KPIs. This is unfair." But I raised my hand, stopping Helen. I looked at HR and realized I didn't want to return to a place that wasn't ready to protect me when the chips were down. A month of leave was just a polite way of preparing for my termination. "No need for leave," I said calmly. "I am submitting my resignation effective immediately. I need time to turn this page, and I don't want to burden the agency with my problems." I signed the papers, packed my things, and walked out of the building with a light heart. I was free. Leonard, however, faced a much harsher reality. His company, a major multinational corporation with a strict code of ethics, didn't pull any punches. The video of their senior manager screaming and threatening a woman in a client's office was the final straw. On Friday afternoon, Leonard's company issued an official press release. In light of recent events and breaches of corporate conduct, manager Leonard Sterling has been suspended from his duties pending an internal investigation. It was effectively a career death sentence. He was blacklisted. That evening, Ryan Sinclair called me with triumph in his voice. "Naomi, they broke! Half an hour ago, Leonard's attorney wired the entire sum, $90,000, to our trust account. They also signed a mutual release of claims. Tomorrow morning, a courier will deliver all your clothes and your watch." Later that day, Leonard published a brief, pathetic apology on his profile. "I acknowledge that my actions and statements at the wedding, as well as my subsequent behavior, were wrong and caused deep pain to Naomi and her family. I offer my sincerest apologies." Below it was a note from Beatrice, who also apologized for her excessive emotionality and misunderstanding. "I kept my promise. I deleted my exposure post, leaving only a brief update. The conflict is resolved. Financial claims have been fully satisfied. Apologies accepted. Please let this matter rest." Sinclair decided to hold off on the defamation lawsuit, retaining the right to pursue it if Beatrice ever opened her mouth again. I returned the money to my parents. We sat in the kitchen, and my father cried, this time out of pure relief and pride in me. My colleagues from the agency threw me a secret farewell party at a local lounge, where Helen promised to provide the glowing recommendations for any future job I wanted. It seemed that justice had triumphed, the money was recovered, and the guilty were punished. The story should have ended there, but what happened next made me realize Beatrice Sterling's madness knew no bounds, and she was willing to go to any lengths to get revenge. Nearly a month passed. I was actively interviewing, going to meetings, and rebuilding my emotional strength. One evening, Eve and I were sitting in a cafe when she suddenly widened her eyes, choking on her iced coffee. "Naomi, you won't believe this! Your ex is getting married!" I shrugged indifferently. "So what? Why should I care? Found a new victim?" "No, you don't get it." Eve leaned closer, lowering her voice. "He's marrying a girl he's known for less than 3 weeks. Her name is Sarah Mitchell, and she's pregnant. The wedding is set for the 8th. And get this, someone told me Beatrice is currently hospitalized with a severe hypertensive crisis that happened right after Leonard was fired. She literally forced him into this." A strange feeling stirred inside me, a mix of apathy and mild shock. Less than a month since our breakup, and he was already marrying someone due to a pregnancy? Sarah Mitchell. I vaguely recalled the name, a distant acquaintance of their family, a quiet, unassuming girl. "Poor girl," I sighed, "walking straight into a viper's nest. Probably went after whatever assets he has left." "Maybe," Eve agreed, "but something feels off. It's too fast." I decided it was no longer my business. I focused on my career. My interviews went spectacularly, at both a tech startup and a major global corporation. The recruiters, surprisingly enough, knew about my scandal, but commended my professionalism, ironclad composure, and crisis management skills. I was offered roles with salaries significantly higher than my previous one. Life was looking up. But 2 days later, my new, unlisted number rang. I picked up and heard Leonard's broken, trembling voice. "Naomi, please don't hang up. Just listen to me. For 1 minute." I sighed, feeling nothing but exhaustion. "What do you want, Leonard? The money is paid. The matter is settled." "I made a horrible mistake, Naomi," he sobbed. "My life has become a living hell. Mom is dying in the hospital. Her heart can't take it." She threw a massive fit, saying her only wish before she dies is to see me married and hold a grandchild. She found Sarah herself. She forced me to propose when Sarah said she was pregnant after a single night at a bar when I got drunk right after our breakup. "Naomi, I don't love her. I love you." "I'm trapped. Mom pressures me every single second. She controls my every breath." "Leonard, stop," I interrupted him harshly. "I don't care about your confessions. You made your choice at the wedding. You betrayed me, you tried to rob my parents, and you threatened me. Your mother pulls your strings, and you happily let her do it. Marry whoever you want, and stop calling me, or I will enforce a restraining order." I hung up. But the next day, a courier delivered a package to my parents' address. Inside the box was a standard USB flash drive and a short note from Leonard. Naomi, I know you don't believe me, but look at the trap I've landed in. I accidentally recorded this conversation on my phone's voice recorder in my mother's hospital room when she forgot to disconnect her phone from my car's audio system link. I want you to know the truth. I have no one else to trust. Out of sheer curiosity, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop and hit play. What I heard made my skin crawl. Beatrice's voice was unmistakable on the recording, vibrant, strong, without a single trace of a terminal illness, alongside Sarah Mitchell's voice. They were discussing the logistics of the upcoming wedding. The main thing is you do exactly as I told you, Sarah, Beatrice was saying in a predatory, chilling tone. Leonard is weak right now, crushed after that miserable bitch Naomi. He believes my every word. We have the pregnancy verification paperwork. A doctor friend of mine sorted everything perfectly. The key is to get you married before his old company completely cuts off his severance payouts. As soon as you're married, we'll make him transfer his second apartment to you, and then you'll hand it over to me via a deed of gift. Leonard won't suspect a thing. He thinks he's saving my life and providing for your future child. And as for that little psycho Naomi, we'll settle scores with her yet. I found out where she's applying for a job, and I'll ruin her there. The recording cut off. I sat before the screen, shaking with disgust. This entire farce, Beatrice's terminal illness, Sarah's sudden pregnancy, was a calculated, cold-blooded scheme by the old mastermind to maintain control over her son, seize his remaining assets, and exact revenge on me. Sarah was just a pawn being used in her game. I uploaded the recording to a cloud folder and sent the link to Sinclair with a note. This is our new insurance policy. Keep it on file. A week later, as I was preparing for my first day at the new global corporation, I received a message on social media from an unknown account. It was Sarah Mitchell. She begged to meet in a quiet park on the outskirts of the city. I went. Sarah looked terrible, pale, emaciated, with deep, dark circles under her eyes. She was shivering, wrapping herself in a light trench coat despite the warm weather. The moment she sat down on the bench, she burst into tears. "Naomi, please listen to me," she sobbed. "I know you despise me, but I had no choice. My pregnancy. It's a fake, a sham from start to finish." "I know, Sarah," I replied calmly. "I have the audio recording of Beatrice discussing it with you." Sarah froze, her eyes widening in terror. "How?" "Actually, it doesn't matter. Naomi, Beatrice is a monster. She caught me through my family's financial debts. My father is severely ill, and we needed money for his surgery. Beatrice offered to pay the medical bills in exchange for me playing along, faking the pregnancy, and marrying Leonard. She promised me a cut of his property. But now she's threatening me. She forced Leonard to transfer his second apartment to her name, and she keeps me under complete surveillance. She abuses me, Naomi, mentally destroys me every day. Leonard is drinking, he lost his job, he's a ghost of himself. And Beatrice, she's insane. She's planning revenge. She found out where you're working, and next week she intends to stage a massive protest outside your new corporate headquarters. She hired some people, printed defamatory signs, and wants to accuse you of extortion and giving her a heart attack right in front of local tabloid reporters. Sarah grabbed my hands. "I'm terrified of her, Naomi. I've decided to run away. I have a flight to Florida tomorrow morning. I'm leaving, changing my name, starting over. But I came to warn you. Protect yourself from her. She will go all the way. The scene at your wedding was entirely her orchestrated plan to get rid of you when you refused to put her name on the deed of your future home." I gently pulled my hands away. "Thank you for warning me, Sarah. Go. Get on your flight to Florida and never look back. I'll handle Beatrice myself." On Monday morning, I arrived at my new office building, a majestic skyscraper of glass and steel. I knew Beatrice would show up. And she did. Around 11 o'clock in the morning, a crowd gathered near the main entrance. Beatrice was there, accompanied by 5 or 6 sketchy-looking individuals. They unfolded massive banners featuring my photographs and captions reading, Naomi is an extortionist and blackmailer. Return the money to a dying mother. This coarse-minded harbors a criminal." Beatrice was shouting into a megaphone, drawing the attention of hundreds of onlookers and employees heading out for lunch. She feigned physical weakness, swaying and clutching her chest, playing out the tragedy of a poor, defrauded mother for the benefit of gathered vloggers and a couple of local reporters. Building security locked down the turnstiles and contacted law enforcement. My new managing director called my phone. "Naomi, what on earth is happening down there? Is this related to your past legal drama again?" "Boss, relax," I replied confidently. "Everything is completely under control. I'm going to settle this once and for all right now. Record it from the upper windows." I took a deep breath, adjusted my blazer, and resolutely walked out of the glass doors of the skyscraper, straight toward the hostile crowd. The moment Beatrice saw me, her eyes lit up with unhinged triumph. "There she is!" she screamed into her megaphone. "Look at this monster! She walks around in designer suits paid for with the money she extorted from my son. She made me an invalid. She destroyed our family." I walked right up to her. Security rushed forward to shield me from her hired agitators, but I raised my hand, signaling them to hold. Reporters shoved microphones into my face. "Naomi, what is your comment on these allegations? Did you really extort money?" I looked directly into the lens of a local news channel camera, then turned my gaze to Beatrice, who was wearing a victorious smile. "I have only one comment," I said loudly, "and I want everyone here to hear it." I pulled my phone out of my pocket, paired it to a powerful portable Bluetooth speaker I had borrowed from the security chief, and hit play. Across the entire plaza, cutting through the roar of city traffic, the crisp, high-quality audio recording blared out. "The main thing is you do exactly as I told you, Sarah. We have the pregnancy verification paperwork. A doctor friend of mine sorted everything perfectly. As soon as you're married, we'll make him transfer his second apartment to you, and then you'll hand it over to me via a deed of gift. And as for that little psycho Naomi, we'll settle scores with her yet. I found out where she's applying for a job." The plaza fell completely silent instantly. The crowd of bystanders froze. The reporters stared at each other, their eyes wide with shock. Beatrice's hired sign holders began slowly lowering their banners, realizing what a dirty, illegal setup they had been dragged into. Beatrice Sterling's face turned from a flush of arrogant triumph to a deathly pale green hue within a single second. The megaphone slipped from her trembling hands and clattered loudly against the concrete. This is a lie!" she stammered, screaming out. "It's a fake! Deepfakes! AI! She fabricated the whole thing! Sarah is pregnant. She loves my son." At that exact moment, Sarah stepped out from the crowd. She hadn't boarded her morning flight. She had chosen to stick around for a few hours to personally put an end to this nightmare and back me up. "It's not a fake," Sarah said loudly, stepping up to the reporters. "I am Sarah Mitchell, Leonard's former fiancé, and I officially state my pregnancy was a total sham, masterminded by Beatrice Sterling for the purpose of fraud and seizing the assets of her own son. She blackmailed me and coerced me into participating in a smear campaign against Naomi. I have all the text messages and documents to prove it." Right on cue, 3 police cruisers rolled up to the plaza with their sirens wailing. Officers poured out. Ryan Sinclair, who arrived right alongside them, walked up to the lead detective and handed over a legal packet and a flash drive. "Officer, here is the official filing from my client Naomi regarding extortion, defamation, criminal harassment, and violations of prior legal warnings by Beatrice Sterling." The officers marched directly over to the speechless Beatrice. "Beatrice Sterling, you are under arrest on suspicion of fraud, criminal harassment, and stalking. You have the right to remain silent," an officer intoned, snapping handcuffs onto her wrists. Beatrice went into full hysterics, screaming, spitting, and faking another fainting spell, but the officers firmly yet carefully loaded her into the back of a cruiser. Her hired hands threw their banners into the trash receptacles and quickly scattered. The reporters swarmed Sarah and Sinclair, filming a real-time broadcast of the epic exposure of the year. 2 days later, the detective informed us that the audio recording had passed forensic authentication, was verified as genuine, and Beatrice, realizing she faced actual prison time for grand fraud, had fully confessed during interrogation and agreed to cover all legal fees and emotional distress damages. Before finally leaving for Florida, Sarah tried to hand me a bank card containing $25,000, the remainder of the cash Beatrice had given her for her father's surgery that they hadn't yet spent. "Naomi, please take this as compensation for everything you went through because of us," she wept. I handed the card back to her. "Keep it, Sarah. Get your father treated and start your life with a clean slate. I don't need this money. Justice has already been served." Beatrice, however, was soon released on bail awaiting trial due to her blood pressure genuinely spiking. A holding cell did no favors for the elderly schemer. Fearing she might attempt to come to my home in a fit of madness, I temporarily moved in with Eve in her quiet, gated suburban neighborhood. And then, a week later, when the storm had fully passed, a finale occurred that I absolutely never anticipated. One evening, Eve and I were walking back from the local grocery store. Standing in the parking lot near her townhouse was Leonard. He looked terrible, gaunt, wearing a crumpled jacket with a week's worth of stubble. Seeing me, he didn't charge forward with his fists clenched. He simply took a step forward and lowered his head. "Naomi, I came to say goodbye. Mom is facing trial, and we are selling all our property to pay the defense attorneys and court fines. I'm moving to another state. I took a job as a low-level clerk under a different name, so no one recognizes me. I just wanted to say, I am so sorry. You were right about everything. I was blind, and I was a coward. I truly wish you happiness. Sincerely." I looked at him. And suddenly, I realized there was no rage left inside me, no pain, no resentment. Only emptiness and a faint sense of pity for a man who had voluntarily allowed his own life to be broken. "Goodbye, Leonard," I said quietly. "And this time, actually grow up." He nodded, turned around, and slowly walked away, dissolving into the evening shadows. I went inside, sifted through my old boxes, found my wedding dress, and drove it to a local charity shelter that very night. I permanently deleted every old photo, changed my number, and closed that chapter for good. A month later, in a cozy little cafe downtown, I accidentally spilled a hot latte all over a passerby. I began frantically apologizing, dabbing his jacket with a napkin, when the man raised his head and our eyes met. It was Alex Smith, my first pure high school love, whom I had parted ways with after graduation because he moved away to study in Europe. He had become a successful architect, mature, broad-shouldered, with the exact same warm, twinkling eyes. "Naomi?" he asked with a surprised smile. "Is it really you?" We sat in that cafe until closing time. It turned out Alex had recently moved back to the city, had also been through a difficult breakup, and understood me like no one else could. That familiar spark, which had lain dormant for long years, reignited instantly, but this time it grew into a steady, powerful flame. Alex surrounded me with a level of care, respect, and attentiveness I hadn't even dared to dream of. He never whispered behind my back. He deeply respected my parents, and my mom and dad welcomed him like a son. A year later, we got married. It was a small, intimate ceremony right on the ocean shore, attended only by our closest circle, my parents, Eve, and a few loyal friends. No grand speeches, no manipulation, just pure vows of love and fidelity. Right before the ceremony, a courier pulled up to the venue and handed me a small box. Inside lay a pair of expensive pearl earrings and a note from Leonard. "Be happy. I hope this gift brings you good luck." Alex walked up behind me, glanced into the box, and then looked at me. I smiled, took the box, and with a swift motion, tossed it directly into a trash bin by the entrance. "We don't need anyone else's past," I said, taking Alex by the hand. "We have our present." A week later, Alex landed a massive 2-year contract in Paris. And right now, as I write these words, we are sitting on the cozy balcony of our rented apartment in Montmartre, sipping wine, looking out at the glittering Eiffel Tower, and planning our shared, happy future, one that will soon include children. The past is left behind, and it can never hurt us again. So, whose side are you taking in this story? Let me know in the comments. I'm dying to read your thoughts. And if you want to be the first to see other perfect facades crumble, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Your support helps karma strike more often. See you in the next drama!